Yeah, my name is Tom Barcellos. I'm the owner of T-Bar Dairy here in Porterville, California. Partners with my daughter and son-in-law in White Gold Dairy, and also the owner of Barcellos Farms, a diversified farming operation that provides feed to our dairies and surrounding dairies as well here in Tulare County, #1 dairy county in the United States. This is the home of T-Bar Dairy. We have what you would call open lot corrals. You can see we have shades in there. The cows are resting comfortably. Their beds are made, floated out there daily. Here they get milk twice a day. They produce on average about 8.5 gallons of milk per cow per day. And the milk gets transported to Tulare, to the Land O'Lakes plant, where it basically gets turned into butter and powdered milk. To give you a little water history on what I've seen here throughout my life, when I was young, they had just really got the Central Valley Project operating, which is the canals that bring water from the dams through the area to the east side of the valley here. And the water tables at that time were low, and as the surface water came in, they gradually came up and up and up, and more ground was being farmed, and everything was being farmed better because we had an adequate supply of water. We had really no major issues from one year to the next, because if we didn't have a rain event where we had very little snow in the mountains, we had ample groundwater from being able to use that surface water prior years. When 1992 came along and there was what they called the Central Valley Project Improvement Act, there was a lot of water diverted to the north, to the delta, for environmental reasons, for fish, and things of that nature, so that gave us less water. We had to become more efficient. Not that we ever wasted water, because we would always recharge the underground aquifers, so the cities and the unincorporated towns around us never had water issues. Over time, some of that underground aquifers have been reduced substantially. You've heard about subsidence has been a major issue, and that's all related to the fact that we haven't had the water coming in this direction as it used to. And we've become more efficient with drip irrigation and things of that nature. However, that does not recharge the underground aquifer. Last year in particular, the 2017 water year, we had water all year long because there was a huge amount of snow, plus we had certain rainfalls. And we really recharged the aquifer considerably with that available water. So we have the ability to manage the water when it's made available to us. Well, on a per acre basis, the amount of cows that are on most facilities will utilize about the same amount of water as if it was farmed in a crop. So acre for acre, or amount of area covered, they're fairly comparable. Dairies will use a little more water depending on their configuration. Here we have open lots, so we don't have a lot of water flushing lanes, even though when you do that, you're reusing the same water over and over again. So in the scheme of how much water does a dairy use for what it produces, it's relatively comparable to most farming practices. Well, in our particular case, the drought impacted us pretty severely in the fact that we grow all of our feed, and for other dairies around us. So since we didn't have enough available water to farm all the acres, we just kind of used up the supply that we had in inventory, because you don't go to the grocery store daily and buy product to bring and feed the cows. We chop feed right now that put up a pretty good amount of it that's going to last for anywhere from 6 to 8 months. And then we'll have another crop that would come off that would carry over throughout that in the following year. Since we weren't able to farm all the acres, we had to grow specifically forages here, and then we had to buy alfalfa from Southern California, Nevada, Utah to supplement and make sure that we had enough feed available. So it made quite a stressful situation. And there are other producers who don't grow any feed at all, so they have to buy from neighbors. And neighbors' priority was not to grow feed for their cows. They were switching to higher value crops. Well, prior to the drought, we always built up a lot of inventory. You know, if we were to stop on one particular day bringing feed in, we had enough to feed anywhere from 9 months to a year and a half, depending on what year it was. And so since we were unable to produce all of the feed and additional feed that we would sell to neighbors, we were only growing what we had water for, which actually whittled away at our inventory, which, you know, reduced what we had available going forward. And when you don't have a lot of feed on the facility, then you're kind of at the mercy of sellers that when you want to go buy, they know you have to buy from them because there's just not a lot of availability out there. One of the things that we've done to become efficient with our water use is we've always laser leveled our fields so that we can get even water flows. We can calculate what our water runs and times are going to be with what available water we have. We make sure we tie all of our pipelines together because volume is very efficient that way. And if we're using dairy water, which is nutrient rich, once it comes off of the corrals and from the milk parlors and from the cows and whatnot, we use that to fertilize the crops as well. We also capture the water that gets to the end of the field, which would be considered runoff. We capture that and pump it back and recycle that through. So managing our water with laser leveling, with return systems, with pipeline connections to try to make sure you have the right water amount in the right places so that it doesn't just go out real slow and percolate and evaporate. There's just a lot of water management techniques that we've implemented. We've been unable to use a drip system in our dairy operations, but now they're developing some new equipment, some centrifuges, some filters that might allow that. That kind of equipment is extremely expensive to buy and relatively expensive to operate. But as we go forward, that might be one of the things that we're going to have to implement as well. We've worked on some trial projects with certain grants, but without that assistance, it just doesn't pencil out. In terms of programs for assistance, there are some out there through the natural resource, through USDA. They pay a percentage, but you know, it's like anything else. You still have to pay the other part, and even that sometimes is cost prohibitive. There's been federal grants to do research on water efficiencies. That doesn't fit for everybody. So there are some opportunities that if there was money available that would cover a fair portion or a larger portion for water conservation, water distribution, those would be really beneficial to the whole environment, the economy, and the water aquifers underground. Probably 80% of the projects that we've done in water conservation we've paid for ourselves. We have had some assistance on a couple of projects, which was pipeline, where we could connect one field to another so we could combine the two water sources and be more efficient with flows. The challenges there is when you decide you need to do something, it usually takes a long time to do paperwork and find out if you get qualified, and you can't start anything until you're notified of approval. And by then you've had to do it or you've given up on it. So, you know, it's the challenges of government red tape. Well, the reason we do the water conservation projects that we have on our own is because it pays dividends. Number one is when we level fields, you eliminate any kind of low pockets that water might stand in that could kill the crop. Plus that water does you no good sitting there. It's efficiencies that generally return on their investment. And it's not too hard to calculate, especially as the value of water goes up and the cost of pumping water or surface water continues to increase. Again, leveling a field does not cost that much money, especially for the value you get on improved crops, improved water utilization. So that kind of thing just makes sense no matter what. Connecting pipelines, depending on how far you have to go to connect it. Some of that makes sense, you know, and returns dollars back to you pretty quickly. It's the higher value things, trying to put in drip irrigation systems, filtration systems, the centrifuge that would take out the solids so that would allow you to run that water through a drip system, and drip systems are very expensive. The only bad thing about those kind of systems is it doesn't give you an opportunity to recharge the underground aquifers. You know, as I said, when we had water readily available, all of the communities around us never had water issues, never had water quality issues. And over recent years, as the aquifers dropped because everybody's gotten tighter with their water and only irrigating root zones, it's become a challenge to keep those aquifers and the communities surrounding us in good water condition. The dairy industry in California has changed dramatically in the last 6 to 7 years. There used to be 1,600 dairies in California, and now we're down to just under 1,200. And even though a lot of those may have been smaller dairies, you know, your 150 to 200 cow dairies, 3 years ago there was a 10,000 cow dairy that got closed down south of here. A month ago there was a deal done on a 9,000 cow dairy west of me, about 20 miles, that is no longer milking cows. The facility is closed, going to be eventually dismantled, and the land around it is going to be planted to pistachio trees, and it's some larger corporations that are coming in and buying up land wherever there's available water, and they're planting pistachio or almond trees, or leaving certain amounts of acreage set aside so they can use the water from that acreage for the acreage they do have planted. So looking forward, there's a lot of things that are changing in the whole picture as opposed to just dairy, because agriculture as a whole is intertwined. We see some dairy producers, and myself included, I have some pistachio trees as well. Everybody's diversifying. There was a time when a dairyman was only a dairyman, and I've always been diversified as I was farming before I came back to the dairy, and so we had opportunities to grow different crops, not always for ourselves, some for sale, and a lot of other dairymen have taken a portion of their acreage and diversified, whether it's into trees or grapes or some kind of other cash crop that was not directly related to the ups and downs of the dairy industry. You know, in terms of solutions to improve our underground aquifers, there's only one thing that requires, is water. And if you don't have the water, you're not going to be able to resolve those issues, which is why we're staring down the throat of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act here in California, which is going to limit the amount of water that we can pump or utilize. There's many other opportunities for us to be able to have additional water, and one of those, because California is got such a integrated water system north to south, if the bay areas or the coastal areas would go to a desalinization of ocean water versus using the snow melt runoff, San Francisco gets its water from Hetch Hetchy up near Yosemite and plumbs it all the way across the valley to the bay, when they have all of this seawater that they could desalinate. The same thing for Los Angeles and San Diego. So that would make more water available for agriculture, for all of the communities in the valleys, Imperial Valley, our Central Valley, and it would allow us to prosper again, as opposed to being at risk all the time of not having enough water.